We never thought we'd say this, but we miss you, Maleficent. We haven't seen your wicked face or heard your maniacal laugh since the very first Descendants film. We know Mal had her reasons for turning you into a lizard, but why didn't she turn you back once she freed everyone from the Isle of the Lost? That just doesn't seem fair. If we were you, we'd be planning our revenge. It's just too bad that you're still a lizard. We really missed you in Descendants 3. And everyone in Auradon lived happily ever after. Except for Maleficent. What happened to the strongest Disney villain of all time? What rock is she hiding under? And is she still a lizard? Keep watching to find out.
No. Your mother did. She shrank to the size of the love in her heart.
Growing up with Maleficent as a mom was super tough, but it did turn Mal into the fighter she is today. Sure, Maleficent wanted to bring down the barrier and punish everyone who'd wronged her, but she did have her reasons. Maleficent put all her eggs into one basket when she sent Mal to Auradon with a special task. But she never expected her daughter to have a change of heart. Maleficent tried to take on Mal and her friends at the end of the first Descendants film, but Mal's magic was infused with love, whereas Maleficent stemmed from anger. So when their spells clashed, Maleficent was transformed into a puny lizard. Maleficent's miserable existence is living proof that sometimes you get exactly what you ask for.
And with that wand and my scepter, I will be able to bend both good and evil to my will.
All Maleficent wanted was for Mal to bring down the barrier using Fairy Godmother's wand, and that's exactly what happened. So next time you ask for something, be sure to be specific. Fairy Godmother willingly gave Mal her wand at the end of Descendants 3, and Mal took down the barrier for good. And while Mal got to welcome her dad to Auradon with open arms, the same can't be said about her mother. So why would Mal side with Hades instead of her dear old mom? Hades made it crystal clear that Maleficent isn't the easiest person to get along with. But when Hades accused Mal of hating her mother, she quickly fired back.
No. I don't hate my mother. She may be an evil lunatic, but at least she stuck around.
We know that Mal kept Maleficent as a pet throughout Descendants 2, but we haven't seen the little evil lizard since then. If turning Maleficent into a lizard and keeping her that way is a symbol of Mal's love, we'd hate to see what she does to someone she hates. In Descendants 2, Mal decides to move back to the Isle of the Lost where she belongs. We see her put Maleficent into a tiny little box and bring her back to the Isle. But since magic doesn't work on the Isle, shouldn't Maleficent have turned back into her usual self like Mal did in Descendants 3? Well, apparently not. Maleficent might be evil, but living the rest of her days as a lizard is something we wouldn't wish on our worst enemy. Mal should have turned her mother back and locked her back up on the Isle with the rest of the villains. But this never happened, so why didn't Mal turn her mom back into her usual self? Well, for one, Mal is probably terrified of what her mother will say once she finds her voice again. Who wouldn't be furious with their child for keeping them as a pet? Maleficent wouldn't hesitate to get revenge on Mal, and since Mal probably feels guilty, she might not be able to beat her mother once again. But the most obvious reason why Maleficent is still a lizard has everything to do with how evil she is. Taking down the barrier and freeing everyone from the Isle just wouldn't have been possible if Maleficent was still calling the shots. She's more interested in revenge than making amends. If Maleficent was still ruling the Isle, the people of Auradon would have never agreed to take down the barrier, because that would give Maleficent all of her powers back, and she just loves throwing evil spells around. Whether Mal would free her mother or not is sort of irrelevant. After all, we haven't seen the tiny lizard since Mal brought it to the Isle in D2. So what if Mal actually lost her mom on the Isle, making it impossible to undo the spell? Mal had to leave in a hurry once King Ben was kidnapped by Uma and her pirates. So it's possible that she left her belongings behind and couldn't retrieve her dear old mom. We just hope that Maleficent made it out of the box she was being held captive in. Without the proper food and nourishment, that little lizard wouldn't be able to survive. Maleficent might be evil and super powerful, but she does have a heart. Would Hades have married her if she didn't?
She's not the easiest person to get along with.
You think?
Maleficent is complicated and unpredictable, but she deserves some credit. And she definitely doesn't deserve to live the rest of her days as a lizard. Although Hades saved Audrey at the end of Descendants 3, therefore redeeming himself in the eyes of Mal, Maleficent could have done the exact same thing. If Maleficent had used her scepter to heal Audrey, she would have patched things up with Queen Leah, Sleeping Beauty, and Audrey all at once. There's nothing that says I'm sorry like saving the granddaughter or your enemy. Unfortunately, Maleficent never got the chance to redeem herself. She's nowhere to be found. Do you think Maleficent deserves to live the rest of her life as a lizard? Or do you think Mal should undo the spell? Tell us in the comments section.
Hi, Dad. Dad. Dad! He's my father.
Everyone in Auradon knows that Hades is Mal's dad, which got us thinking, who's your dad, Uma? You've been pretty much tight-lipped about your family tree. Sure, you're the daughter of Ursula, but your abilities surpass your mother's by a long shot. You're smart, resourceful, and curious. So you must have found out who your dad is at some point or another. So come on, Uma, tell us the truth.
I'm done waiting for a day that will never come.
There's way more to Mal and Uma's relationship than meets the eye. They're stronger together for some undisclosed reason, and we believe we know why. Watch until the end to find out what Mal, Uma, and Maui have in common.
Ben saw something in you, and today, Uma, I saw it too. You care. Uma, you care about everybody.
There are two ways Mal and Uma could be related, and they both have to do with Hades. Disney often draws inspiration from Greek mythology, which is where the Lord of the Underworld originates from. When it comes to Greek mythology, Mal and Uma aren't related, but when you combine the Disneyverse with the mythological world, Uma and Mal's family tree does in fact cross branches. In the earliest The Little Mermaid drafts, King Triton and Ursula were brother and sister, and since Hades is Triton's uncle, this means that he's Ursula's uncle too. This would make Uma and Mal distant cousins. It would also make Uma and Ariel first cousins too. Although Disney chose to omit Ursula and Triton's relationship from the movie, there are still some subtle hints that link them together. But for now, let's put the Disneyverse and Greek mythology aside and focus on the Descendants world. Things are very different in the United States of Auradon, and so is the relationship between Mal and Uma. In this universe, they're much closer than distant cousins. They're half-sisters. Let's look at some of the facts. Mal and Uma are about the same age and grew up together on the Isle of the Lost.
You wanting something from me, and me watching you squirm like a worm on a hook.
Uma's father has to have lived on the Isle, or her conception wouldn't make sense. Hades told Mal in Descendants 3 that being married to her mother wasn't easy.
She's not the easiest person to get along with.
So we know that Hades and Maleficent got divorced right around the time that Mal was born. So it's possible that Hades dated around after calling it quits with Maleficent. There are so many clues that point towards Mal and Uma being half-siblings, one of them being Mal and Uma's instant connection since childhood. But something happened for Mal to suddenly turn on Uma in the novel Rise of the Isle of the Lost. And we're thinking Maleficent had a hand in this. Maleficent must have known about Hades and Ursula's fling, which would make her despise Uma. So separating Uma and Mal would have been a top priority. And since Mal was keen on making her mother proud, she probably didn't think twice before betraying Uma. Being able to transform into fantastical beasts is another thing these two VKs have in common. Uma can turn into a cicalia. She can control water and use sea magic. And Mal can turn into a fire-breathing dragon. Both Uma and Mal can use complicated spells, and Uma can even use spells right out of Mal's spellbook. That doesn't sound like sea magic to us. Mal and Uma are the only VKs in Auradon who can transform into large creatures in the blink of an eye. Sure, they might get this from their mother's side of the family, but if Mal and Uma were only half magical, why would they be stronger than their mothers? It sounds like they have some other powers at play here, which likely come from their shared father, Hades. We also notice that Mal and Uma have similar hair colors. Although Maleficent doesn't show her hair, she's known for repping the color purple. So we can only assume that she has a head of purple hair like Mal's. Hades' hair is vibrant blue. Put those together and you get Mal's purple-blue hair. Then there's Uma. Her mother Ursula was voiced by Whoopi Goldberg in Descendants 2.
Shut your clown! Mom!
so we can only imagine that Ursula has dark skin and white hair, but Uma's hair is a mix of white, black, and blue. So where does this mysterious blue color come from? We're pointing a finger at Hades. But the most obvious sign that Uma and Mal are sisters has to do with Hades' ember. Before giving Mal his ember, Hades told her that it only responded fully to him because he's a god.
You're only half Hades. The ember won't do everything for you that it does for me.
But for some odd reason, Uma and Mal were able to use the ember to its full potential when together. Mal didn't accomplish this with Evie, Jay, or Carlos, but when it came to Uma, magic happened. On top of that, Uma's seashell necklace was also reacting to Mal, so maybe it sensed their close relationship. Mal and Uma quickly realized that they were strong together, but they never explained why. And guys, we doubt it has to do with the power of love or friendship, because if that were the case, Mal wouldn't have needed Uma to save Auradon. Hades told Mal that if she got the ember wet, it would be game over. Yet somehow she managed to revive it with Uma's help. Mal couldn't ignite the ember alone. She could only use it at half capacity. But if Mal and Uma are truly Hades' daughters, that makes them both demigods. And the power of two demigods should equal out to the power of one. This explains why Mal and Uma were able to do what they did. And luckily, Audrey and the Scepter were no match for Uma and Mal's powers combined. Do you guys think that Mal and Uma are half-sisters, cousins, or simply unrelated? Tell us in the comment section. Dear Jay and Gil, we hope you guys are having a blast on your vacation. You're probably surfing down the Amazon River.
You know what would be fun? To go rafting down a jungle river.
Find a lost civilization.
Oh, or maybe a penguin.
Swinging from branch to branch in total Tarzan fashion and eating fuzzy rocks, aka coconuts. You guys really do seem like the best of pals. But Jay, we need to know what happened between you and Lonnie. You guys grew super close by the end of Descendants 2, but now you've committed to a year-long vacation and Lonnie is nowhere to be found. We want some answers, Jay. Where in Auradon could Lonnie have gone? We can't believe she wasn't in Descendants 3, but according to Diane Doan, the actress who plays her, Lonnie had her reasons for keeping away. Keep watching to get all the deets. We definitely weren't the only ones who noticed that Lonnie was a no-show in Descendants 3. This strikes us as strange, especially since Lonnie was such a vital character in both Descendants 1 and 2. Lonnie is brave, smart, and unpredictable, which would have made her a total asset. Plus, she knows how to wield a sword like there's no tomorrow, so she would have been a valued ally during the fight with the Metal Knights. While Lonnie has her reasons for keeping away, it makes no sense that she would miss her best friend Jane's birthday party. And since she's such a good fighter, the Lonnie we all know and love totally would have offered her services once she found out about the sleep spell. But most peculiar of all is how Jay didn't even mention Lonnie once throughout the film. We got the impression that Jay and Lonnie were couple goals at the end of Descendants 2. Jay supported her and helped her become the captain of the Swords and Shields team, whereas Lonnie saw Jay for who he truly was and risked her life to help the VK save Ben. This VK-AK relationship was a dream come true, which is why tons of fans have shipped Johnny since the very beginning. We were certain that these two would be dating by the time Descendants 3 rolled around, but no, Lonnie was nowhere to be found and Jay didn't feel the need to mention her at all. It's possible that Jay and Lonnie gave romance a try, but quickly realized that they were better off as friends. This would explain why Lonnie wasn't present and why Jay chose to keep quiet about the whole ordeal. Another thing worth mentioning is that Descendants 3 takes place in the summertime. The VKs revealed that Audrey was staying at Auradon Prep for the summer because of summer school. Harry Hook thought this was hilarious and blamed summer school for Audrey's villainous rampage.
What? Summer school? Summer school? No wonder she wanted revenge.
But we all know that that's not the case. If Lonnie wasn't at Auradon Prep, that means she didn't want to take summer classes and probably remained in her hometown of Northern Way. But according to Diane, Lonnie had no choice but to be written out of the script, and we'll reveal why in just a few moments. The real reason why Lonnie wasn't in Descendants 3 is stated on her Descendants fandom page. Here we find out that Lonnie is absent due to touring the United States of Auradon with her Roar team. Knowing this, it makes perfect sense that Lonnie wasn't at Jane's birthday party or involved in Descendants 3 whatsoever, but part of us still wishes that Jay would have talked about Lonnie at some point in the film. We were really rooting for this couple. Another reason why Lonnie wasn't in D3 has everything to do with the storyline. Main characters like Jay, Carlos, and Doug didn't have the most lines throughout the film, so adding Lonnie to the equation would have complicated things. In the end, the script for D3 was designed to follow Mal, Evie, Uma, and Audrey's stories, which sort of put other characters on the back burner. So at first, we thought that Lonnie was purposely written out of the D3 script to uncomplicate things, but that's not exactly true. In the end, the real reason Lonnie wasn't in Descendants 3 has everything to do with the actress who portrays her. Diane is a 28-year-old actress who started acting back in 2009. She played in a handful of short movies before being cast as Lonnie in 2014. For the next 3 years, Diane would voice her character in Disney Descendants School of Secrets and Descendants Wicked World, and she would also appear in D1 and D2. But by the time Diane wrapped up filming for Descendants 2, she realized that she wanted to expand her horizons, so she started auditioning for different roles. So when it came time to film Descendants 3, Diane has some conflict issues that she could not ignore. As a result, the actress was unable to reprise her role as Lonnie, which led her to being written out of the script. While we do love the Jay and Lonnie ship, we couldn't help but fall in love with Jay and Gil's budding friendship throughout the threequel.
I like how you get a kick out of a berry bush.
I like the way that you can bounce around and jump off things.
Jay and Gil might not have bonded if Lonnie had been around, so in the end, we're pretty happy with how things worked out. If Lonnie had been present in the film, the writers might have made Jay and Lonnie an item, which could have prevented Jay from going on a year-long voyage with Gil.
Right. You know what would be fun? To go rafting in a jungle river.
Find a lost civilization.
Oh, or maybe a penguin.
Let's put it to a vote to find out who the most popular couple is. Comment Jay and Lonnie or Jay and Gil in the comment section below.
I was just coming to see you.
Really? Is it because I'm gonna be queen?
We love you, Hades. You were by far one of our favorite new characters in Descendants 3. We loved your duet with Mal, and we still can't get over your cool blue hair and badass outfit. We're so happy that you and Mal were able to patch things up. So now that you're a free god, will you be taking your daughter to the underworld for a family vacation? We'd seriously love to see that. We all thought that Mal had no clue who her father was, but we now know that's far from the truth. Mal and Hades' relationship has a few loose ends we want to tie up. Watch until the end to find out the truth about Hades and Mal's relationship. Who is Mal's father? That's the question that's been on everyone's mind ever since the first Descendants film aired in 2015. It was thought that Mal had no idea who her dad was, but that turned out to be a lie. In the Under the Sea trailer, Mal stumbles across a blue orb in a forest and believes it to be her dad, so it's safe to assume that Mal has known who her dad was for many years now. In Descendants 3, Mal and Hades sing an amazing duet that gives us an inside scoop on their relationship. Hades is convinced that he did Mal a solid by taking himself out of the picture. He says her daddy issues have made her stronger, and that she was better off without him. But there's one line that proves just how much he cares about his daughter. He tells Mal to pay him some respect because it's not easy to neglect. So this means that abandoning Mal wasn't an easy thing for him to do. But that wasn't enough to convince Mal, who still couldn't forgive him from walking out on her. To find out who her real father was, Mal must have used the process of elimination, and since Maleficent is one of the most powerful villains of all time, it makes sense that she would fall for someone equally as powerful as her, if not more. At some point or another, Mal figured it out, and she thought that Hades didn't care about her. But something changes after the do what you gotta do duet. Celia tells Mal something that changes the way she sees her dad forever. After finding out that Hades is Mal's dad, Celia says, "So I guess that's the reason why he's always asking about you." Hearing this helps Mal forgive Hades. After all, he was secretly checking up on her from afar. It's also possible that Mal asked around the aisle and found out that her mother and Hades used to be a thing. It isn't the first time Maleficent and Hades have been coupled together in the Disneyverse. Back in 2003, Hades and Maleficent were shown going on a date during a House of Mouse episode titled Halloween with Hades. so there was a paper trail for Mal to follow. Although it might look like Hades wants nothing to do with anybody in Descendants 3, it's actually hinted that Hades owns a souvlaki restaurant in Descendants 2. There's a sign that says Hades Souvlaki. It's under this world, hung up right next to the Curl Up and Die salon. So Hades and Mal might have crossed paths many times over the years. And who knows, maybe he gave Mal a free euro or two, which could have tipped her off.
Quite a show you put on the other day.
Right back at you.
Hades wasn't there for Mal when she was growing up, but he's here for her now. Sure, he did abandon her as a baby and attack her with his ember for some unknown reason, but he's still a million times better than Maleficent. When it comes to Maleficent and Hades, Hades is clearly the better parent. Yes, he may be a little wicked, but he's nowhere near as criminally insane as Maleficent. Maleficent didn't care about Mal's feelings at all, so we're Team Hades from here on out. In Mal and Hades' duet, Hades asks Mal if she'll take him to Auradon for some father-daughter bonding time, but she's just not interested. All Mal wants is the Ember. Hades hates Auradon and everything it stands for, but he wants to make things right with his daughter, so he gives her his most prized possession. If that's not saying sorry, we don't know what is. When Mal walked out of his den, Hades whispered, "That's my girl," which shows us just how proud of her he is. Mal always wanted to make her mother proud, but nothing she did was ever evil enough. So it's nice to know that Hades has been proudly watching his daughter from afar since the very beginning.
I guess that's the reason why he's always asking about you.
But Hades' road to forgiveness didn't stop there. When Mal returned to the Isle and asked her dad to save Audrey, he did so without a question. Despite being past the barrier, Hades didn't try to escape the second he got his hands on the Ember. Instead, he saved Audrey's life and returned to the Isle, but not before doing something totally sweet and selfless. Hades gave his Ember to Mal before being taken away by the guards. This touching moment was enough to make anyone tear up. By the end of Descendants 3, it's clear that Mal has forgiven her dad for leaving. She hugs Hades and welcomes him to Auradon with open arms. Mal and Hades are definitely going to have an amazing relationship. He'll walk her down the aisle when she marries Ben, and he'll take her on a family trip to the underworld whenever she's willing. We loved the song Do What You Gotta Do. Which song from D3 was your favorite? Tell us in the comment section. And that's a wrap. Give this video a big thumbs up and don't forget to subscribe. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time on The Things.